Good afternoon, Dr. Dave. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Dr. Joe. I'm doing rather well. Thank you for asking.
Well, thanks for being here. We also want to thank all of our audience, viewers, or listeners to this episode of the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast, where we've said it many times. Me and Dave try to solve the world's problems. Not really, but we try to hopefully give you or provide you with tips and things that can help you along your journey. And so, with that, not to waste too much time, we want to bring up our topic today, like in our normal fashion. I introduce it, or one of us introduces the topic, and then we pass it off to our co-host. All right, so today's topic is it is a marathon, as compared to just a sprint, and I'm referring to our journeys. So with that, I'll introduce Dave and let him introduce our topic.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for throwing that hornet's nest in my lap and telling me to figure it out. No, it's a marathon. You know, that this is a topic that you and I tossed around before the show, and we're like, this is a good one actually when we think about it, because again, as it applies to your personal and professional development, and life in general, it's a marathon. I guess it depends on your perspective. You could say, well, 100 years or 80 years or 70 years is rather short, but it can also be very long. So, which yeah, that means a whole lot of nothing to most people. So let's actually talk about something that does mean something. So when we take a look at our personal professional lives and talk about it being a marathon, it's just that. I mean, some things are going to be a little bit of a foot race. You're going to maybe go to the front of the line or whatever, but other times it's there's a lot of strategy and patience involved, and you have to understand that you have to pace yourself. That we've heard of the saying, burning the candle at both ends and burning out, and by always sprinting, that's what's going to happen. You might be thinking,
Mhm.
oh, I've been doing it for this many years and it's been great. That's great, but there is going to come a time when the line's going to be drawn and you're just not going to be able to do it anymore. So if you pace yourself like in a marathon, you'll be able to go further for a little longer period of time. So when we think about developing our careers, there are some folks that believe in, going in and getting the big money fast and then exiting, and that's one strategy. But the other one is, or another one is, what about those of us who are in it for the long haul, that career? We're not popular on Instagram and have 12 billion followers, which would be amazing in and of itself. But yeah, we're out here just being the average Joe and the average Dave out there trying to figure out how to, make things work. So the best approach in most cases is to take the perspective that life and your career is a marathon. You're gonna have your ups, your downs, you're gonna have the good times, the bad times, you're gonna have the lean times, you're gonna have the robust times, you're gonna have, lots of money and not enough money. All these variables are going to come into play. So how do we manage that marathon? How do we pace ourselves to make sure that we've got the energy, the stamina, the focus, the concentration to make it to the end of that marathon and win that race? So I'm going to pause for a moment because we can unpack that over the next several hours. We're not going to, but we're going
Right.
to do our best to do it in our time that we have with everyone today. So we have to pace ourselves. And what does that look like in your career? What does that plan look like? And you think about running a marathon, what do you have to do to get to the next leg, the next mile, the next quarter mile? What do you got to do? What you're paying attention to your body, you're paying attention to your mind, your focus. So how do you get into that mode where you can just keep going versus the stop and starts?
Dave, that's a very good way to say that. It really goes back to the critical self-reflection piece,
Mhm.
just understanding that this is a marathon, that you have to pace yourself. You have to do the proper training and all those types of things. And because once you do that critical self-reflection, you will have a better understanding of that. And then from there, you can create that goal or the milestones. And so, like most of us, we go into this sometimes, and I'm a perfect example. I'll admit that, when I went back to school, that's what almost derailed me, my education journey, was because I was thinking it was going to be a quick race. When I first looked at, earning my first degree, and I first was kind of mapping it out in my own head, But it wasn't until I talked to the counselor and they enlightened me on what it was going to take. And
Mhm.
that it almost just, yeah, disrupted me and put me in a backspin and thinking, it's going to take me too long to get that because I hadn't done that proper,
Mhm.
um, gone through that proper thought process that it's a marathon and it should take a period of time. I was really under the assumption that I could knock it out and then just continue to move forward. So it wasn't until I did that, evaluation, take a look at it. How can I get there? How can I make it, like you said, without stopping and getting discouraged? And that's when I kind of devised my plan of, okay, don't think about down the road, 3 years, 4 years. Think about this class. Think about doing all the assignments in this class. So I
Mhm.
broke it down to those, again, attainable goals that I could celebrate more regularly than, the whole 4 year time it was going to take me to earn my degree. And once I did that, it made it much easier for me to manage and to, get excited about, okay, I'm finished this class. Let's go to the next one and the next one. So when we
Okay.
think in terms of, looks like you're going to say
Yeah, I was
something.
going to say, while we're talking and reflecting upon our educational journeys, mine is very similar. We both started school late, and I went in my bachelor's program, not sure if I'd be able to finish it. I did. I rolled straight into my master's, and my plan
Yep.
was, oh, I've
Yep.
got my mode. I'm just going to keep going. And then I kind of hit a little bit of a wall, and I was like, well, do I want to do this? And I had to take into consideration other factors. And at that time, my son was in junior high and starting high school, and I was thinking, if I only complete my master's, will I be happy? And I had to really think back on what I'd accomplished. And I told myself, if that's the way it's supposed to be, then I'm okay with that because I've still been a role model for my son. So I spent 4 years. I took a sabbatical, 4 years with my son, helping him grow up, become a young man, and finding his way. And then I started back into school. And to your point, you have to reflect. You have to have a goal in mind
Right.
because if you don't, you won't achieve it. Otherwise, you're
Right.
just saying, it's a wish or a want versus saying,
Absolutely.
hey, I'm putting this down. So, um, yeah, it does make a difference because you have to understand what pacing yourself looks like and what do you have to do to get that energy back if you take a break or you have to take a pause. So,
So Dave, kind of to your point, we were similar up until, I earned a master's degree, but I knew
yeah.
for myself that if I stopped, I wouldn't return. And
Hmm.
so, but I was in a different situation than you
Absolutely.
because of because my kids by then were much older.
Hmm.
And in fact, they were all in college with me at the same time, which is
How
a
cool is
pretty
that?
unique experience. But that was the difference. That was why I knew I could continue because I knew I wasn't taking as much away from them, that they needed me, as much as they did in previous years. So
Hmm.
that helped me with my, determination of what this marathon looked like for me. And that's why I continued to push forward and I didn't take a pause. I didn't take a break. But like we both said, it took that evaluation, that critical self evaluation or reflection, and to understand, you know, the benefits, the gains of this, and doing it the way we did it. And but it came down to really thinking about it and mapping it out and understanding when you needed to take a short pause or brief pause to recoup and come back and go stronger. So yeah, just like a marathon, there's parts in the race when you watch those races, you see, everybody speeds up,
Hmm.
gets that momentum, they slow down, then they know it's time to put in the kick again. So all those are very similar to whatever type of journey you're on. In my case, it was education, but I also think about, at that same time, when I was moving up the ranks in the military, going from an E6, and then slowly starting to advance in my military career because of those strategic moves I was making on the education side,
Hmm.
it also transferred and translated into me advancing in my military career and becoming a leader.
Hmm.
So we think about, that pacing ourselves, managing it. It's a marathon. All these other things come into play as well when we think about where's this going to take us?
Yeah.
So the more time you take thinking about it, planning, and setting it up, it's not a surprise to you. It's it starts to flow smoothly, and
Hmm.
and you mentioned it. It happens because it's supposed to happen. You're not caught off guard. So the more time we take with
It's deliberate.
planning and
Yeah.
understanding and being deliberate, the more things start to align and to fall into place. And I can attest in my own experience, that's what's happened to me over the years.
Hmm.
Anytime you'd apply for a position or you'd, something was coming up, a lot of times you were already there because you had already made the provisions to get you to that next level. So
Yeah.
that's
I think
one of
another,
the main benefits of understanding that it is a marathon.
yeah, I think another one of the big pieces that we, that really picks up with that self-reflection is the networking and support piece.
Right.
Because as you go through your journey, this marathon throughout your career, and you have your milestones and your goals, and many of them, hopefully, um, you're going to have those ups and downs, and it's great to have the network available to you when things are
Absolutely.
down, because
Yep.
whether it's job displacement, whether you missed the mark, there is just a bumble in the workplace that you were part of or led, maybe, how you
Right.
recover from that, and that support system and that network is going to be there to keep you from totally losing it and falling out of the story, and to help you rebuild what you need to rebuild, and to continue pressing forward to get you through. Conversely, they're there to celebrate your successes as well. I mean, your family's
Right.
there, your
Yep.
friends are there, your colleagues, your support system is there, your network is there to, we see it on the social media. Hey, so and so got a promotion. That's awesome. And look at how many people react to that. And that's a
Right.
good thing,
Respond.
So
Yep.
we need that support system. A lot of people say, oh, I'm a lone wolf. I do this alone. I do it my way. That's fine. But I'm of the belief that that doesn't work for everybody. There,
Right.
bell-shaped curve. There's people that can do it alone. There's people that are totally codependent. But then there's that middle where most of us fall into,
Right.
someplace along that curve, and it's just to what degree. So when we talk about that critical self-reflection, those plans, those goals, make sure you've incorporated a good solid support system and a network, because they're going to be there to celebrate with you and to help get you through the tough times.
Absolutely. And I can, again, I'm a perfect example. As we just discussed, my goal was to push through my entire education, from all associates all the way through doctorate. And when I got into, the doctorate program or doctoral program, I was struggling. And I did get to a point where I told my wife, "Hey, I don't think I can continue this."
Same thing
And
here.
she helped with that support,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, you've gone this far, we're here for you." And that made all the difference,
Yeah.
because if I would not have had someone that was going to give it to me straight, someone that was going to, be the support that I needed, I may have just walked away or stepped away from it, because I've
Right.
known a lot of people that started the
Oh
program
yeah.
excited
Yeah.
about it, and then things come up, and they had to back away, or they had to change their direction.
Hmm.
But fortunate for me, I did have that support system that you're talking about.
Hmm.
And in reference to this, that I just had a conversation about 2 weeks ago with a gentleman who just went back to school, and these are some of the same questions he asked me. Because he's in that mindset of the sprint versus the
Hmm.
marathon, and so he kind of did what I did when I first went back to school, and that was kind of looking down the road. Well, it's going to
Hmm.
take me 4 years to get there. How do I accelerate this process? How do I get to it sooner rather
You
than
don't
later?
accelerate it. It's like saying,
Right.
hey, I'm gonna make the day go faster by turning my watch or something. It doesn't happen that way.
Right. Well, and so that's what I cautioned him, because his thoughts were, he's taking 2 classes now, and then he's thinking, oh, well, I'll take 3 classes, and
Hmm.
I told him, okay, yeah, that's great, but the first thing I asked was, is your wife going to support that?
Hmm.
And he went through the story that yes, she is, because she finished her degree, I supported her, and so now she's going to return the favor. So that's that was where I wanted him to start, to make sure if this is the course of action that he's going to take, to make sure that he
Hmm.
has that support on the other side, that when he's if he's not able to do things, and if he's not present at times, it's because he's working on his schoolwork, then that's where you're going to have to make sure that she understands, or your friends, family,
Right.
whoever's important to you. And he reassured me that was the case. And so those, again, he was asking those questions because those are questions that you need to ask
Absolutely.
yourself and other people. Because if you just say, "Oh, I'm going to start taking this many classes," without consulting with your wife or your significant other or family, then you could be setting yourself up for failure. And
Yeah.
so he had already done that. So again, that's a huge part of it. Just
Mhm.
that what you just said, Dave, that network, that support system, those people that are going to carry you through the ups and the downs is very important. Because always think of a marathon, when people are out there running with a sprint,
Mhm.
everybody gets excited because it's, pretty quick, and you can maintain that excitement
Yeah.
throughout the entire race because it's going to be, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever it is.
Mhm.
But in a marathon, you're talking about somebody that's running, a five 5K or
Mhm.
running a mile or whatever it is. And so you see them, if it's on a track, they loop the track how many times. And so you don't have the same excitement
Mhm.
as you're watching. You don't sit there clapping the entire 5 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it is.
You're clapping for 4 hours straight.
Right. So it is different. And so having that support system that they're going to be there cheering you on, that,
Mhm.
that fifth time you go around a lap or sixth time, whatever it is, and they have that same excitement for you, so that that when you're running around there, feel like you're not running, running on the track by yourself, but there's someone there supporting you, and
Yeah.
going to be there at the end, whether you win first place or you're in last place. You're still going to have that support system. So
Yeah.
that's what I also often think of when I think about a support system being there for you through a marathon, because it's,
Mhm.
again, much different than the sprints, the short win, the short, times that it takes you to get to a really quick goal or milestone. It's
Mhm.
much different than that long, drawn out, goal or
Yeah.
milestone that you achieve.
Yeah. And I'm going to kind of go down a little bit of a rabbit hole. It was, I was doing a briefing a couple of weeks ago and for the military, and a question came up when we were talking about, moving on to a new position or getting hired into a new position. And are we hiring the right people? And what if we, hire someone that's X, Y, or Z? Won't they just quit? And when we talk about support systems, your leadership and your management, your supervision, and your who you report to have that support is very important, because if you can have a transparent conversation saying, hey Joe, I really like doing this, but I really want to be there should be that support to help get you there, so that
Right,
someone else
right,
who wants to do what you're currently doing can
right,
move up. It's not a bad thing. And the argument came up, well, won't they just quit within X number of days, weeks, or months? And I'm thinking, and my reply was, anyone could quit in a matter of days, weeks, or
right,
months. It doesn't have to be just because of a work related situation, moving up or moving over. What if it's a family situation? What if they move? What if they, there's a bunch of different what ifs. So we can't be afraid of people wanting to develop their career, because part of our jobs as leaders is just that, bringing people in and supporting them. And by not supporting them, that's also sending a very clear message. So
right,
we have to
right,
be careful. Where I'm going with this is we have to be careful who we bring into our support networks, because the last thing we want to do is go after quantity instead of quality. To say that you
right,
have 5 million friends on social media, that's great, but how many of them are actually your, and I'm air quoting, your friends? Do you actually
right,
reach out and talk to those people every day or every week or every couple of weeks?
right,
So, the quality of that network, the quality of that support, the quality of your goals, the milestones, the quality of your work, all plays a big factor into whatever your definition of success is for that marathon. And to your point, a marathon could be a mile, it could be 5 miles, it could be 26 miles, because it's whatever your definition of a mile, of a
right.
marathon is. For
Yep.
me, not a runner, a mile, that's a marathon. For someone who's a marathon runner in the traditional sense, they're going to be a mile. I'm not even warmed up yet. That's what
Right.
I do to
Yep.
drink when I'm drinking my, my sports drink to
Right.
loosen up. So, you have to think about your mental and physical condition as well when we're talking about, you know, keeping in mind that it's a marathon. How are you going to pace yourself? What are you paying attention to within yourself, your body, your mind, your family, your work support system. What are you doing? What are you paying attention to? Because if not, to your point from several episodes ago, we're just floating down a river waiting
Right.
for the next thing to happen. I mean, yeah, we've got a paddle or steering, but we're still going in the direction of the river instead of
Yep.
making our own path. So we we need to understand ourselves, to your point, critical self-reflection, very well, so that when we're in these times where we just need to get in a zone and push through and persevere, we're paying attention to what's going on with ourselves and what's going on around us. That plays a huge factor in your success and in your stamina. Because if you're running uphill the whole time, maybe there's a flat spot, or maybe there's a couple of downhills where you can catch your breath a little bit before you start going up the next one.
Right. Dave, you bring up a very good point, and we hadn't touched on it before then. And it's the idea of you defining what success is to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I'm not a runner either. It's painful for me to run, bad knees, bad
Right,
feet.
right.
But so for my idea of success in a marathon would possibly be a mile, where like you
Mm-hmm.
say, a lot of people might laugh at that and say, oh, yeah, man, I can do that in my sleep. But in my case, that's a huge success. And I think
Mm-hmm.
probably really early on in our episodes, that was one of the things
Yeah,
that
yeah,
used to
sure.
hinder me in the military, just because we had that physical fitness test. But
Yeah,
for
yeah.
most people, or a lot of people, it's not a big deal. But
Mm-hmm.
running for me was a challenge, and so my idea for success was when I had that annual, fitness requirement. That mile and a half was that was a milestone for me.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. Even you made reference to floating down the river, and you haven't identified what success for you looks like, and so you again continue to float down that river,
Mm-hmm.
either aligning with someone else's idea of success, and what that marathon looks like for you. Because in the Marine Corps, it's not a mile and a half, it's 3 miles, for your annual fitness test.
Yeah.
So again, if you think in terms of if you want to be aligned with that organization, you're going to have to do that. If you want to be
Yeah.
aligned with another organization, you're going to have to do that. So if you want to stay in alignment with them, you're going to have to meet those criteria.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, um, you still need to set your own goals, your own idea of success. You
Mm-hmm.
still need to determine that, whether it aligns with, again, the Marine Corps or the Air Force, but that's still up to you to make that determination. And also, I like the idea that you talked about, preparing or helping people, um, may mean that they lead the organization.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, our job as leaders is to help people grow, develop. And
Yeah.
sometimes it means they may have to leave because they're not going to get where they need in their journey during their marathon at that particular organization. It
Mm-hmm.
may have capped out, it may have reached their limit. They may now be a square peg trying to fit in a round hole.
Right, right.
So it is really important that going back to that critical self reflection, that you identify those things, you understand those things, because you may have to leave an organization just because of that. It no longer fits in the alignment where you're trying to go. And I'll refer to myself back when I was going through my education journey, as I was advancing in my career. I realized, and people had to help me with it too, that I no longer fit that organization. And then I had to start looking at things outside of that organization.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm glad I had, going back to that support system, someone that offered me, advice and suggestions on maybe I need to look elsewhere, because I was so stuck on, couldn't see, couldn't define it, couldn't clearly see what was happening in front of me, because I had my mindset on where I was trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said earlier, I wasn't really looking at the big picture. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
looking at everything. And so I was
Yeah.
focused on me, getting through my marathon, through my journey, without really reflecting on all those other things that contributed to it. So they were able to help me see those things and realize those things.
You bring up a couple of good points, Joe. I really like the fact that you're really emphasizing the support network, because you mentioned you may have to leave your current workplace to
Yep.
continue that marathon. And unfortunately, on the personal side of things, we may have to do the same things.
Right.
If our support system on the personal side isn't backing us up the way we need to, we may need to redefine what that personal side looks like. And we've heard the
Right.
adages throughout the years, when you sometimes you have to leave people behind, and that's okay. They say for a reason or a season, and for meeting people, and sometimes that is it. Maybe there's a reason that you meet them, maybe it's for a time period, maybe it's for your entire life or your entire journey, which is fine. But
Right.
you have to be able to walk away from the negativity or then the people that are holding you back, those naysayers. I've seen it online a couple times the last few weeks, and that is, if you want to be smart, surround yourself with smarter people. If you want to
Right.
be,
Yep.
successful, surround yourself with people that are more successful than you, because you're going to learn from them
Right.
versus learning bad habits. You're going to learn good habits, and that's
Yep.
important when from a support network side of things. And again, to the leadership piece, that's the job of a leader. A leader is not a manager. Well, you manage processes, you lead people, so you need to develop your people. And if you're holding them down, you're not leading them.
Right.
And
Right.
part of your job as a leader is to find and develop talent. That is practically your sole responsibility in the scheme of things. You have to develop your staff. And if you're not developing them and you're holding them back, or you're hindering them, or you're telling them that they have to wait longer while other people are, in the fast lane, there's a disparity there. And when we talk about a marathon, leadership is a marathon. Once you get to a position of leadership, that is your marathon. Your goal, your
Right.
success is measured by the people that you've helped, not by the people that you've hindered. So on the
Right.
personal side, who is helping you and who is hindering you? And unfortunately, is what it is. It's not a good, bad, or indifferent. It's just sometimes we outgrow each other or ourselves and realize, hey, this is not where I want to be. I need to move. I need to change my direction. This is not a shortcut in the marathon. The marathon has a track. It's just, where do I get off at the point of success? And you'd mentioned, your success is defined by you, not by other people, unless
Yep.
you're willing to follow them. And that is your definition of success. So if you're following an organization, your success may be different, but as long as you're working for them, you have to follow their success. If they're a financial institution, you want to be marketing, maybe they don't align up with where you're at, and you have to find a
Right.
marketing firm. So um, yeah.
No, I think that's very important what you just said, especially about the alignment. I mean, again, we talk about we like to stay with an organization, but we also have to make sure that we're still aligned, and that's what happens over the years. Sometimes that the directions change, and so staying aligned may not be the best thing for you. So you may have to decide, and like I said before, you may have to decide to go move to another organization or move to another area. But it still should be left up to you to
Right.
determine whether you want to do that or not. And you said if you stay aligned with them, you have to understand that's where that organization is going, or that's where it's headed. So if you don't want to be part of that, make sure you understand that. Um, and I think I lost my. Um, I think one of the things you talked about, I think I kind of lost track of what that was when I had started heading down
It's
that
all right.
path.
It's all right. We've got a couple minutes left. I'll go ahead and drop my final thoughts.
Okay.
The best piece of advice I can provide at this time is pace yourself, give yourself time to rest, reflect regularly, and make sure you have your energy level where you need to be, because it's a marathon. You have to pace yourself. There's going to be times that you're going to want to go fast to pass someone, and then there's other times you're just going to let other people go by because that's your rest period, so you can pass them later on, or take a different path. So pace yourselves and know that success is right around the corner. And it's a marathon, folks. Make sure you got some good running shoes on.
All right. Thanks for that, Dave. Yeah, I just want to kind of echo some of the things you said, and part of it is when you evaluate what your marathon might be or what the way you'd like for it to be, those are things you must factor in. The celebration piece. Even if it's a 5 mile marathon, you make 1 mile, celebrate that. Maybe inside or pump your fist, and then also know when you might need to pull over and pick up that water that's there for
Absolutely.
typical runners, or just that time to take a quick break. Also recognize those things. So again, it is a marathon. It's not intended to be fast, quick, fast, and achieve that goal. or milestone, because if that's it, that should maybe just be a piece of it or rung, because the expectation is that you're going to go further. So yeah, just keep in mind whatever your marathon is, whatever your journey is, make sure you define that, that it's yours. Again, you like to stay aligned with organizations and people, but that may not necessarily be the you may not have that choice. You may have to change. You may have to alter, because again, it is your marathon. It is your journey. So make sure it stays yours. So with that, again, we could go on for probably hours about
Hours.
this, but again, we just want to again encourage you to continue thinking about what your marathon looks like, that critical self reflection, really thinking about where you're trying to go. And with that, we want to thank you for tuning in. And again, if you're gaining something from this, please share it, pass it on to friends, family. If you want to reach out to us, our information will be in the description box.
Mhm.
Um, I said this is the third time now, but with that, we just want to continue to encourage you to be your not so ordinary you.